Thank you once again. Tuning in 28 days. We're celebrating our history, our heritage, and our culture. And we have the distinct honors to have our last featured guest. And on the set with us today is Dr. Crystal Luckey. Welcome to the set.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Dr. Luckey, give people a snapshot on who you are.
Well, I am both an English professor and I'm the Director of Africana Studies at Villanova. And I am also a Pentecostal preacher.
Okay.
So my life outside of the university and my life inside of the university work really well together. So I'll tell you about sort of my life outside of the university first. My husband and I work together in the ministry. We've worked together for over 20 years. We've been married for 25, but we've worked together for over 20 years.
Okay.
And he is the pastor, I'm the assistant pastor of Sword of the Spirit Church, which is in Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. And we're a part of a big international Pentecostal church organization, the Church of the Living God International Incorporated. And we're under the leadership of our founding and presiding bishop, Dr. Joseph White, who is in Columbus, Ohio. So we do a lot of traveling, a lot of international travel, a lot of national travel, and I love it. It is my life, and that's really what gets me up in the morning is ministry and my life in the church. And then the Lord really has allowed me to have a life where I can also work in higher education. And as the Director of Africana Studies and as an English professor, I do work in 19th and 20th century African American literature. So my work together, it all kind of dovetails together. So can I tell you a little bit about the new thing I'm working on? It's actually not a new thing. It's kind of it's the culmination of years of work. I uncovered the autobiography of a woman from the 19th century, a preaching woman, a black preaching woman named Charlotte Riley from Charleston, South Carolina. And she was born into slavery. She was born in 1839.
Wow.
Her parents were slaves. Her parents were named John and Sarah Levy. And they had 4 children. Charlotte was their only girl. And they were owned by, it looks like kind of, I don't want to say liberal, but more upper class Charlestonians who allowed for Charlotte to learn how to read and to write. She went to a school where she also learned to sew. And that sort of set her off on a life of public service and of ministry. She was actually a licensed minister in the AME Church in the 19th century, which, is pretty amazing.
Yes.
And so I have I'm publishing an critical annotated edition of her autobiography. It'll be in hand in the stores, on Amazon in the fall of this year, and it's being published with the University of Wisconsin Press.
Now, I know it's something where somebody proposed to her at a certain time, and she had this fierce, independent way about herself.
Yes.
Expound on that.
During the Civil War, Charlotte, whose last name was Levy at the time, Charlotte Levy, went with her grandmother's mistress to Anderson, South Carolina, sort of a ways away from Charleston, because they wanted to ride out the war there in Anderson. And while she was there, she met a man named Cornelius Riley, who was the town architect. And for some of our viewers who might be watching, they might be thinking, a town architect who was black man, but there were artisans who were both free and enslaved in that Charleston area and in many southern cities. And he was the architect. He went to her and he was interested in her. She was about 25 years old, and he was interested in her and asked her to marry him. And she was fiercely independent, told him no, that she was not going to leave her mistress and that she was not going to marry him. So he said, "I'll let time settle the matter." And he left. And it's kind of weird when you think about it. And in 15 days, Charlotte Levy, who was going to become Riley, her mistress died.
Wow.
And so it left her free to be able to marry. It also seems to have given her her emancipation.
Okay.
And so they got married, and you'll have to read the narrative and read all of my brilliant work on the narrative to find out that, in fact, the marriage doesn't last. But there's all kinds of interesting, she was a phenomenally interesting woman. And I'm just really privileged that I could sort of carry on her legacy, myself as a black woman preacher who is kind of taking up this work of these women who fiercely believe themselves called to preach the gospel, and who, despite any kind of institutional pushback or any kind of resistance, they found ways around it to do what they believe God called them to do.
Well, as we wrap up, how can people get in contact with you? Because I know you're chopping at the bit like I am.
Well, the easiest way right now is to contact me by my Villanova email, which is Crystal, which is CRYSTAL .Lucky, LUCKY, at villanova.edu. And I will say this, I'm working on a website that if anybody emails me, they'll be able to get the website. But I'm working on a website where I will be able to list all the names that Charlotte Riley lists in her narrative. She lists over 150 names of black and white people, men, women that she worked with, worshiped with, that she had any kind of contact with. And what we want to do is set up this website where maybe people are looking for their family members, maybe people that are interested in Charleston history or AME church history, that they'll be able to click on this name and a biography will show up, or people will be able to give me information and we can work together to uncover maybe some lost history.
Wow. Hey, this has been fascinating. Also, if you want to catch her, she's had churches in Lansdale, PA, and look that up as well.
Lansdowne.
Lansdowne, my
sure
fault.
It's Lansdowne. Yeah.
Hey, we thank you once again for tuning in with 28 Dads with our last featured guest, and it's our honor to have Dr. Crystal Lucky on the set. Some parting thoughts. Instead of counting your days, make your days count, because each day is a new day to make a difference. Also, when you find your purpose, you will find your voice. Then you will be able to speak unapologetically, authentically, with boldness in a humble fashion. And you have to break the rules to establish your voice. And as we wrap up, I'd like to thank a few people, Hezekiah Lewis, the executive director, Dow Ridgway as well, and the crew. You have been phenomenal and established. There's more to come, so we look for you tuning in every day to BHN.TV, 28 days, and there's more to come. Thank you once again, and have a great day.